Evening and welcome to the Magpie Circle. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late. We were just fingers and thumbs checking through all the transfer deadline signings. And it doesn't appear as if we have troubled the scorers, so to speak, either in terms of incomings or outgoings. I did get excited when I saw that Sunderland have signed Traore for £2.5 million. But that's Bertrand Traore from Ajax. Okay, so before anyone comes on and says Traore's signed or moved on, no, he hasn't. So we go with what we've got. Are you happy with that? Do you think we've got enough in the squad after 7 points out of the last 3 games? Are you worried potentially a lack of another striker could cost us now that the deadline has closed? How much more optimism do you have after Saturday? It was certainly a sea change from half-time to full-time, wasn't it? Great performance second half. First away win. 1-2 drawn, 2 lost 2. And I think respectable would be a phrase to describe the start to the season. I guess it's kind of now polarised some section of the fan base's views. Happy with what we got, we can push on for a charge towards promotion. Others worried that with the transfer deadline having just passed without bringing anybody else in, that we could be seriously exposed down the spine of the team from goalkeeper to centre forward. What are your views on that? Plenty of people already registering those. Who's off to Lincoln in the EFL Cup or EFL Trophy on Tuesday evening? We've sold, believe it or not, 500 tickets, which I think is pretty remarkable. I think a lot of them were today after we'd beaten Tranmere, but I think that's a great turnout. Fleetwood on Saturday, definitely, don't quote me, goes ahead, despite it being international weekend. Notts only have 2 players on international duty, Jody Jones and Kuyar. Jones with Malta, Kuyar, who's already played 1 or 2 games for Afghanistan. He's clocking up his air miles. So both of those not available. But you have to have 3 for the match to be off. So that game will take place. Lots of observations, thoughts and views. Stell, I don't know whether to start off with 7 points out of 9 or no activity in the transfer window. Taking into account all of that, are you a happy camper compared to where it was, let's say, Friday going into the weekend?
Well, I'm happier for the 3 points, obviously, like I'm sure we all are. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to change my tune. I still thought we needed to add. I thought last week we needed to add to the squad, and I'm not going to change my tune now. Like I said, nothing's been announced, and I'm just looking at the computer screen here, and I'm refreshing just in case. And we know deals can be announced after this 7 o'clock deadline. As we sit here now, the window is closed, but deals can have been done up to the last minute, but they don't actually get sort of publicised, do they, straight away? So there might be a few hours, but it looks like it's been a really quiet sort of deadline week. We were anticipating quite a bit of action, both in and out, and seems like it's been completely the opposite in terms of nothing happening. So, look, it obviously goes to show that they back what the business that they've done. The technical board, everybody at Notts backs the business that they've done previously, and the proof will be in the pudding, won't it? We will find out in due course. The squad, as I see it, has got a lot of players with a lot of question marks against them in terms of what they've done or what can they do, what they can produce, and time will tell. So, like I say, if that is the way, and we'll wait confirmation over the next couple of hours, maybe that there's nothing right up to the last minute, no late deadline deal. But it looks like, headline news, Jatta stays, and it looks like nobody else comes in. So we are as we were.
Okay, we'll delve into that in the next hour of the programme. Let's get a few thoughts from the flock. Richard Terry was first at 319, I think. Cool, blimey, he was in early. Is the data recruitment model coming to fruition? Has the Jatta saga all been a red herring? Martin Patterson's comments recently sound as if he's now towing the party line, and the win on Saturday cheered us all up. Sam Draper, impressed with Saturday's win. It's the type of battling League Two performance that we've been lacking in previous years. It was great to see Notts being the perpetrators of the dark arts for once. I did actually say on my vlog, Sam, I wasn't unduly worried with that last 5-10 minutes. Like you say, I thought we controlled, a difficult situation pretty well. Steve Geldard, evening, great result Saturday. No, the technical board is still not right. Paul mentioned this on Friday. We should have added to the spine of the team, especially a striker and keeper. Sam Draper says it looks like a reasonable start now. The 2 late goals conceded against Barrow and Bromley mean we dropped 3 points. If we don't concede those goals, we will be sitting in 6th place now. Fine margins. Sam is definitely a glass half full kind of guy, I can tell. Paul Mantle, Notts are going up. Notts are going up. It's all coming together now. Nothing like living game to game. Bud Chatwin, more serious note. My 92-year-old mum passed away recently. And when asked what she would miss the most when she goes about Notts, she said, Stell shouting, get in, says it all. PJ Defiance. PJ's got off scot-free. Told you no former player has scored against us so far this season. My apology is on hold. Yeah, on our Friday show, Stell, PJ was proudly proclaiming that we'd not conceded a goal from a not striker this season. Obviously, I pointed out Charlie Whittaker and Christian Dennis, and that either of them scored, PJ was writing out 40 lines and more of apology, but he got it right. He got it right. Evening from Jurgen Halligan. So it looks like no striker coming in. Just hope we can keep Jatta and Dennis injury free. Richard Elvian. I had no expectations of a result at Tranmere. Was that before the game or at half time, Richard? And was pleasantly surprised. It's always worth the trip when we win. Evening, everyone, says Ray Newton. Poor transfer window by Notts for me. I can't understand why we've not purchased another keeper or striker, says PJ. Paul Cuthbert, the recruitment guy, must have very strong faith and hope no forwards or centre halves get injured. Seems to confirm a very blinkered view again. Disappointing window, can't afford injuries or suspensions. Ray Newton, we need a keeper, central defender and a striker, but it's not happening. Doesn't appear to be so far, unless a rabbit comes out of a hat later on this evening while we're on air. Tim Watchorn, Saturday was a battle and Notts won it. There will be more to come. Once more unto the breach. Shakespeare, Henry V, was it, Tim? Can't quite remember. Can't remember my A-level English now. Adam Kent, remember, although the transfer window closes at 7, the deal sheet scenario, that's very good, you nicked that one off Sky, will extend announcements until 9 p.m. incoming or outgoing. Paul Cuthbert, despite no additions, we'd all guessed it. Saturday was a great result. Can improve, but let's be grateful. AJ's on song. Forwards look good. Keep what works, surely. Saturday, as again, we would have lost last season, says Gary O'Connor. So got to be pleased with the 3 points. Looks like no additions today. Let's hope we stay injury free. Richard Hawksworth, evening from Royal Marlow. Michael Fletcher, we seem to be slowly improving. Fitness is better. We fought to the end on Saturday, which hasn't always been the case. Evening from Stephen Newton. One thing, says Royston, about Saturday's win is we stood firm at the back. That's got to be a big positive. Evening from Pythagoras and Karen Knight. Here's Ian Cooksey. Evening all. That was a solid win Saturday. Need to build on it now and try and get on a bit bit of a run. Colin Metcalf, having heard Martin's post-match interview, it's clear regards the order of authority retransfers. Success or failure, it's now clear where the credit or blame will lie at the end of the season. Personally, I am underwhelmed. Gazali didn't get to go Saturday. Great result. Was at Wembley last night for Coldplay. Nearly as good as seeing Kedwin's penalty there. Rich Hawksworth. It was it's very clear now who has the casting vote recruitment. Maybe the Italian should come out of the shadows and face the questions. Not fair on MP one little bit. Jock Pie, well done, Stell. You've got your first win. Rich Hawksworth. Yeah, keeping AJ is like a new signing. So that is a massive positive. Evening from John Parr. Chris Gosling, 7 points from 9. AJ back and looking hungry. Surely cause for a positive show, both positive and negative. And you'll dictate that, Chris, and other members of the flock. Well, that was a first for me on Saturday, says Andy Easom. Keeper versus keeper in a tussle for the ball. Thought that was very funny. Thankfully, no VAR. See more movement in and out at Wrexham, says Elvis Bott. Paul's late, must have been reading up on all our signings with a touch of sarcasm, says Stephen Andrew. Chris Gosling, what quality of striker did people expect us to sign when we're effectively selling them a third in line bit part role? Chris adds, credit to the defence also. I thought they stood up to the Tranmere onslaught admirably on Saturday. Evening from Newark, from Essie Kent. Kedwin's dad, Colin Scott, is on the blower as well. I'd say we've turned into a typical League Two team this season, says Colin Metcalf. I'll support the lads. We've got, as you never know, it's football. 7 out of 9 in the last 3 promotion forms, says Greza Maxwell. Rare Productions, evening from Cambridge. One striker and we're in big trouble, says Bandini. Adi Clark, evening Adi. As a former professional, Martin Patterson will clearly know that having 2 strikers on the pitch causes teams more issues. Great to see Jatta patting the badge. With Dennis the Menace, there'll be a formidable duo. I'll tell you what we'll pick up, because there's kind of like a real positive. Stowe with 7 points out of 9, and footballers, a lot of it's confidence in it, you know. So unquestionably, the more games you go and the more points you pick up, the more you start to believe, gel, all of those sorts of things. And then on the other side of the fence, the transfer window has now shut. And I think looking at this, there's quite a large section of our fan base, you know, fingers crossed, everything crossed. We need a bit of luck striker wise. Don't want Keller getting injured, and we're weak in some areas of the pitch, which tends to be the spine and kind of wing backs. And those areas we've got 3 or 4 options. I think one of the most burning questions from Saturday. Historically, we've always played with one up top. Would you expect the head coach now to stick with Dennis and Jatta playing together? Because I thought that was a brave call on Saturday.
Yeah, the short answer is yes, I would. I know we've got an hour-long show to fill, but yeah, no 2 ways about it. I think he mentioned it, and it was the Saturday before, wasn't it? The home game, was it after Bromley? And he mentioned looking on the bench, didn't he? Not having that second striker to put on when we were 2-1 up, to try and cause problems by running forward, things we've gone over in last week's show. And then fast forward a week, he's got Jatta available. Obviously, he decides he's only fit enough to start on the bench. But when, again, we get ourselves into a scenario where we're 2-1 up in the... Oh, no, we were level, weren't we? But we were level in the game.
Yeah.
But he then still makes the positive substitution and puts that second striker on and goes for the last half hour with 2 up front. And, yes, it looked to pay dividends, didn't it? Jatta, lovely flick for the build up for the second goal. So I would expect him to stay with 2 up top. Now, I think we've got to mention Jodie's not going to be there this Saturday, is he?
Yeah.
So that's one of your, say, number 10s, if you like, with withdrawn positions not available. So I think that might also just almost force his hand a little bit, although, I think he would have gone two up front anyway. Um, and again, in the modern game, although you start with yet two out and out strikers, they'll both be asked to do a bit of the donkey work out of possession, drop in, fill in positions, fill in spaces, a little bit withdrawn. So they won't just stand as a front two against, as the old days, two centre forwards against two centre halves or whatever it was. So they'll be asked to do the work out of possession of the ball, but I think he will go, with Jatta. As long as he thinks he can do 90 minutes, then, and I don't think there's any reason why he shouldn't, I think he'll start Jatta and Dennis up front. And like I say, we'll come on to it, but people have alluded to it. I think that's a forward pairing that will cause problems in League Two to any defence. The issue we might have is getting them to cause problems for the 40 games we've got remaining. Because again, you're looking at the backup options, as we've spoken about with this transfer window, and you're going, well, there's no proven backup option there. And Martin himself has said when Jatta was unavailable, one number 9 in the building. So we know exactly what his thoughts are. Yes, we know there's probably been conversations behind the scene this week, and he changed his tune a little bit in his pre-match and post-match interview. But that is the truth of the matter. My Traore is probably the only other one as an out-and-out centre forward, and he is question mark. Having not scored a goal at the club, not had loads of game time, but he is a question mark as to, is he going to be any good? Is he going to be good enough? Should he be called in? So I think he will go with two up top. And again, I think the fact Jodie's not there probably makes that decision a little bit easier for him, if I like. He's not got too many options. But yeah, I think it is a two that gets you excited, isn't it? We saw that for half an hour on Saturday. They will cause problems if they're at it.
Second half, chalk and cheese to first half. Did it surprise you at all or not? I think it's fair to say that in the stands at Tranmere, there wasn't a lot of positivity from the first 45, yet they really seemed to come out the traps second half.
Yeah. Now, look, first half was a real scrappy kind of
Yeah,
game, wasn't it? Nothing of note happened until they stuck one in a few minutes before half
yeah.
time.
Neither keeper made a save. Yeah,
Nothing of note in the game. But you go in feeling gutted, don't you, at half time because we're behind in a game that should have been 0-0. Second half, I thought we responded really well. I thought they came out, they were strong, physical, played some good, positive football. Again, not perfect because we conceded chances. We rode our luck at times. There was one or two scrambles in our defensive end of the pitch, but they got over the line. And away from home, when you're behind, given that it's not been an absolute fantastic start to the season, they sort of bittered and bobbed so far. That shows a good mentality, a really good mentality to go, do you know what? Let's go and get a positive result. We spoke about it before. So I didn't see it coming at half time. What I will say is, we were at the back of the stand on Saturday, but you probably felt it more than us. The wind was a heck of a lot stronger than we could feel in the back of the
yes.
stand, which probably is an explanation of why the first half was as poor as it was at times in terms of quality. So there was a bit of an excuse for players like that. But the second half, I thought, without being, fluent, I think what we've got to get used to is the fact that we're maybe not going to see as much of the fluent possession football
Yeah.
that we saw last season. That's not to say we aren't going to see any of it, but I don't think we're going to see as much. We aren't going to maybe dominate possession like we did last season. But then a lot of us were moaning about having that possession and not doing much with it last season. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. So the fact that they got the 2 goals away from home, the first away win is great. 7 points out of 9. You can't fault that. And again, it's something to build on. And you're absolutely right. With confidence, hopefully comes a bit of momentum and we can take this forward into the next games.
Nigel Natras, who not only does first team games, he does B team games, youth team games, you name it. He's saying that last week the B team played a private friendly at Watford. Don't know whether he got in or not. They lost 5-3, but Mia Traore scored twice. One, it's good to see him playing. Two, to see him scoring. What else have we got on the message? Let's have another dump of all of your messages, because there are literally hundreds of them, and we'll try and read as many out, both sides of the fence, as always. Evening all from Big Meech. No outgoings, which is strange. Missed opportunity to bring in a couple. Jatta and Dennis played well off each other on Saturday. John Parr seemed to have a massive squad. Could be difficult keeping everyone happy. We're going to struggle, says Nick N. Not enough quality. Mid-table if we're lucky. What else have we got? Jurgen saying he's one of the 500 going to Lincoln tomorrow evening. Should have signed a keeper and a striker, says Steve Geldart. AD Clark still think it's a strange turnaround from Martin, clearly stating need another striker, then changing his tune. Any injury, suspension, or Jatta on international leaves us short. Winnaker Records. Paul, is this shirt a replica? If so, please let me know where you get it. A replica produced by Richard Anscombe and Jay Dalton. I have got an original, but back in the day, Stel, them shirts were very, very tight, weren't they? And there's no way, I doubt it wouldn't fit over my head, the original one I've got over there, I tell you.
All shirts are getting tighter and tighter as we get older. That's the thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is XXL, I think. Right. What else have we got? Charlie Capewell. Hope we play Bennett, Edwards, Traore, Hall, Hinchy, Macari, and Jarvis tomorrow. Give them all a chance. It will be interesting to see what we do with the squad. I'm sure that there will be some form of changes. As to how wholesale those changes are, we may get a clue. I think Martin will be doing his presser tomorrow. Ian Hayward, I think we'll be okay until January with the current squad. We need Jarvis to put the graft in to give Martin a headache for selection. Dale Pikett, mid-table mediocrity, here we come. So does that mean the coach will be sacked when we finish come the end of the season? Ian Hayward, maybe we can get someone from the National League. Well, of course we can. I would have thought brace yourself for players leaving possibly to the National League. I do wonder whether York City and our former head coach Stuart Maynard will come knocking later this week or in the not too distant future. In Birchnell, Jatta, Dennis, Grant trio looked decent. Looking forward to seeing more of them together. Andy Esom, I'd expect many of the squad that we haven't seen this season to be in the starting lineup at Sincilbank, or I think they call it the Elenior Stadium, did they know? I'm not exactly sure. Stephen Shepherd. McDonald and Palmer had great games on Saturday. But Chapman, if we beat Fleetwood and get a clean sheet, then we'll all be happy. No clean sheets. Missing Alex Bass big time. Andy Adcock, great to see a Notts player gambling and getting a tap in. Yeah, the first goal from Dennis. Something we've been missing since Macaulay Langstaff left. Don't forget, we have League Two equal top goal scorers, and Dennis is top of them all, says Dave Hartshawn. Paul Mantle, last few seasons we've come out the traps, then fell off a cliff. 40 games left to reach the peak. Slow and steady wins the race. Tyler Dodd, he's after score predictions. We'll go down that in a minute. Chris Gosling, I like the fact that Martin went two up top, even though we'd got level. That showed an intent to win. Here. Rich Hawksworth, the owners obviously have faith in Traore as the third striker, hence no new additions. Right. Let's just stick with the review of Saturday first and then sort of delve into recruitment. Martin's kind of apparent change in tack, shall we say, on Friday. You've made the point previously, Stel, that as much concern to you, no clean sheets. we got done just before half time. Thought we defended well second half. And as I said, strange as it may seem, I was nowhere near as worried in that game than I was, say, at Barrow, or Newport for that matter.
Yeah. Well, I say we didn't give up a barrel load of chances, that's for sure. But there were one or two moments. I think.
Yeah.
I think that the closest sort of they came in the second half. I think via a Rod McDonald block. I think where he threw himself at Patrick. I think it was, and he just got a deflection on the ref. Didn't see it. Gave a goal kick. Kelleroos had to make a save, didn't he? After he'd sort of not punched brilliantly. But apart from that, we didn't give too much away despite the pressure. So I thought we defended well. You're going to be asked questions. You always look for this. We were talking before the game about a 90-minute performance. We haven't had that yet. Martin will freely admit we haven't had a 90-minute performance yet. And we still haven't had one after Saturday. But it's become, it's a bit of a unicorn, isn't it? A 90-minute performance, if you like. It's the perfection that we all seek in terms of, how often do you really get 90 minutes where you dominate a game, you're comfortable, and you run away and win it 3 or 4-0? Certainly away from home, that's a rarity in itself. But, you do want more from the performance. I believe the players have got more in them. And I certainly think Martin believes that. Otherwise, we are going to be struggling. But I think they are capable of more. But on Saturday, I thought they defended well. I thought they played well. Second half, I thought they played really well. It was again, you've got to remember that other teams, when you're away from home, other teams are going to get, say, chances, but they're going to have periods of possession, periods of pressure. They're throwing a goalkeeper up the last 5 minutes for a corner. They're really going for it. So you're going to be asked questions, and you've got to stand up to that. So they did that really well, and that's as much of a feather in the cap as getting the 2 goals really for themselves. They're not had other chances as well. Could have added to it. But it was a really, whoever said it was a League Two, you probably look like a proper League Two team. Saturday's game was a proper League Two win. I think you didn't see too much, possession for possession's sake. You saw 2 teams going at it. There was a little bit of spite in the game, wasn't there? There was a few tackles going in, a little bit of afters. Love to see that. It is still possible in the modern game without having a flurry of yellow and red cards. But to come out on the winning side of it, to win that game, that should give the players, a big bit of confidence on the back of 4 points before that out of 6. So, pleased with that Saturday. Without it being, it's not going to be a performance we'll talk about at the end of the season.
No.
It's not one of them performances, but it's getting the job done. And in League Two, believe me, when you take 46 games of a league season, getting the job done is going to equate for, 70% of the games. You are not going to see this majestic football that we all sort of think, this utopia of passing and opening teams up at will, and just it just doesn't happen like that. We know that, but we still expect it. It's weird, isn't it, football for being like that? But I thought Saturday they can take a lot of plaudits from it. They got the job done, and that is, as we've said many a time on this, it's about getting 3 points. It's about the win, and they got it away from home. That is never easy. It's never taken for granted. So that's credit to them. Now they've got to take it to Sinsel Bank tomorrow night, but in the league, they've got to take it back to Meadow Lane and continue this run now at home to Fleetwood on Saturday.
Here's 2 polarised views, if you like. Ian Cooksey, 14 more wins, and we will be on 50 points. Take it from there. Andrew Gregory, unbeaten in 3, 4 points from automatic, stroll on. There you go. We always have differing views on where we are this season. Martin Patterson. So Martin's been fairly vocal and strong, with his assessment of his squad and wanting, more, was it cards on the board, cards on the table, only got the 1-9, etc., etc. And I think we all noticed a definite change. I think it was you and I talking about alignment. And I'm not sure, well, I know quite a few of the guys at the club listen to it, but alignment seemed to be the buzzword in the statement, didn't it, at the start? We are all in alignment. We're all in alignment. I mean, Did that surprise you, or were you kind of half expecting, behind the scenes chatter and say, look, hang on, we are where we are. We just need to calm this down a bit. This is what's going to happen. Surprised or not by that?
A little bit, but not really, I suppose, because like I say, conversations happen day in, day out in a football club. It's not like they just meet up on match days and then go, or press conferences and go, right, what am I going to say today? They will have meetings regularly, certainly, in a transfer window, particularly. Yeah, I think with Martin Patterson, he's had a great career, really good career. Went for a couple of million, didn't he, as a player? Is that right? You certainly went for £1 million or more as a player. Played international football, and he isn't a shrinking violet, is he? I think we've met him and spoke to him, and we've got some. He's not a shrinking violet. He believes he's strong in what he believes in. And I don't think he's one of them that's going to come out and just toe the party line, if you like, if he feels differently. He's going to back himself and have his ego and his belief in what he's doing. And I think credit to him. I absolutely think that's absolutely the way you've got to be. Um, Likewise, there'll be ego elsewhere in the club. There'll be strategy, and the technical board, they'll have ego to go, we've got this right as well. And they'll be having meetings where there may be clashing heads, you know, and I don't mind that. So I've been in a dressing room where, like I say, all sorts of stuff goes on. You're not going to have a perfect agreement, but you've got to be able to voice your opinion. I think you should have a strong opinion, and you're allowed to voice it. And if that leads to arguments, disagreements, fine, that's fine. But you get to the bottom of it. And I think this week it appears that they've sort of, and this might be based on not being able to get one or two transfer targets, maybe not being able to offload one or two players, So maybe discussions with Jatta and his representatives about what the future holds, what they're looking for, what can be done, in terms of where they're at. And I think there's a result of all that thrown into the cooking pot. It's come out with, right, it looks like we're not bringing anybody in, but nobody's going out. That's how it is now. Like it or lump it, that is how it's going to be. Where, like I say, we all heard him. Martin Patton wasn't happy with just having one number 9. Now he's got that on record. And like we're all saying, well, yes, obviously Jatta's available. So now he will say, well, I've got 2 number 9s, obviously, that are proven. But as we say, get an injury to one or two of them, get a suspension, get whatever, and we're back to knowing that the head coach thinks we're a little bit short in terms of that number 9 role, even if it's to look on the bench and bring one on. So there's obviously been robust conversations behind the scenes to say, I assume, look, we think Traore is good enough, and Martin must have accepted that. At some point, he's got to accept it, or maybe didn't accept it straight away. But he's got to say, okay, fair enough. I'm going to come out and say that I think we're okay now, in terms of the squad, because otherwise, I think he's enough of his own man to have carried on the sort of rhetoric of we disagree about this, but that doesn't stop me from doing my damnedest to get a tune out of all these players and do the best. That's what a head coach is there for, really. He's been given the tools and been told, right, you're the head coach, go and coach them and get the best out of them. Like I say, again, it's a very easy thing to say, not so easy to do. But obviously, they've got this 28-man squad that I've got written down here, where they say it's 28 man, before you put all the youngsters into it. And they obviously deem that strong enough. Collectively, that is deemed to be strong enough. So, again, time will tell. The results on the pitch will show. But the recent results have maybe come into line with, okay, well, Jatta's available again. 7 points out of 9. Things are trending in an upward direction. We will wait and see. Just as I wasn't getting doom and gloom after three semi-poor results to start the season, we're not also going to go, everything's great now, because we've had 3 decent results in the last 3 games. I think the fact of the matter is we are somewhere in between, and we're still waiting to be proved where we're going to be, what sort of team we're going to be. Consistency, Again, it's that 10, 15 game spell, isn't it? We'll know a bit more by that time, but they can do no more than win the game they did on Saturday. If the window does close, I keep refreshing this and seeing if anything's come up, but nothing has as of yet. But yeah, it looks like they've had them discussions in house, and again, whether that's via arguments and discussions and disagreeing, disagreeing in private, but at some point you've then got to put on a unified front and show
Mm.
that alignment, because who who comes out and bad mouths, but who comes out with a totally different line to their employers? Not many
Yeah.
people do they? If you value your position, you don't come out and constantly repeatedly, disagree with the employer's line of sort of opinion. So I'm not saying Martin Patterson has been got at or whatever, but he's noted his frustrations. They're on record. Nobody's come in since he's mentioned them things. Yes, Jatta is back available, but we go, okay. He said that at the time. Nobody else has come in as far as the number nine's concerned. So, as far as we know, he still thinks the same thing. And maybe behind the scenes, he's been convinced that, A, we can't get anybody better. We can't get anybody to strengthen us. We could have got a number nine, but it wouldn't have been anything too impressive. Or again, it would have been a question mark. So, he's had to accept that this is what I've got to work with till January. And so be it.
Several of our flock have, I think, been monitoring BBC Radio Nottingham at the same time as watching this show, and they've said that Adam Hassel has said that he's been advised, non-attributable, obviously, that Notts are not expecting any transfer activity tonight to be announced. But Chatwin Nuno disagreed with his employers. Maybe he is in line to replace Martin Patterson if things go wrong. Is 28 players too many, says John Parr. Well, it'll be interesting to see whether it stays at 28. I have a feeling there will be some outgoings. And rather mischievously, I would love it, sounding like Kevin Keegan, with all these director of footballs and head of recruitments, if you could make a manager. Say, right, you've signed all these players. You're saying they're the best players in League Two, best player to come out of Tottenham's youth team since Glenn Hoddle, all of these sorts of things, and then put them in charge for 3 or 4 games and see how they get on. It can never happen. But I really would find it interesting because I think we do live in a world of, very few people are accountable or responsible in positions of authority. I find these days everyone can pass the buck. With a head coach or a manager, Stel, I think it still remains one of the most transparent jobs you can have in any profession anywhere, because every single week you're judged on that result. And I thought it was a brilliant line from Graham Potter, who's not normally very humorous, but he said he did something on West Ham's tour in America, and they're all a bit more relaxed over there, friendlies and everything. And he come on and he goes, yeah, he said, as managers, he said, when we win, we talk about results. He says, when we don't win, we talk about performances. I thought that was such a great line, and you've mentioned this. But I thought it was just, it was very, very good. But managers, it's so, people's views of where Notts are going to finish, quite a percentage, are now diametrically opposed as a result of us beating Tranmere on Saturday to where they were even at half time. Even at half time.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, every week, there's thousands of fans will disagree with a manager's selection of players, won't they? Up and down the country, every week. We all have different opinions on players. We all have different opinions on formations. That's the thing about football that's so beautiful, that keeps us coming back for it. That keeps us, you can get your teeth into it. And the only thing that I always say is, there's only one man, i.e. the manager, head coach, the man that picks the team. There's only one man that gets to find out whether he's right or wrong, and that is it. The rest of us, like forever, in any theoretical conversation that we have on here, that people give their opinions in a pub or wherever, it's never going to be tested. It's never going to actually happen. So forever, when somebody says, "Well, I wouldn't have picked him, I'd have picked him," the sort of reasoning is, and that player I would have picked would have had a great game. By the way, there's absolutely no question he would have had a stinker. It's just if I'd have picked a different formation, sure, we'd have definitely won, obviously, because that would have been it. And we're all absolutely perfect until we actually get given the reins, and then like I say, there's an opposition team that makes it difficult. So, but that's what's great about the game. That's great that we can all talk about it, debate it, and we can all watch the same games and come from totally, as you say, polar opposite views on things. We like it that play, we like that formation. No, don't rate him. Don't like that. That's wrong. And that's the great thing about football. There is only ever one man that counts, but the person that counts gets well paid for it, gets the chance to climb the ladder if it goes well,
Yeah.
but he's the one that's going to lose his job if it doesn't. And that is the jeopardy of being a football manager or head coach these days, or through any day.
Paul Mantle, it would be nice to go for it tomorrow night in the cup at Lincoln. It will probably be the only cup run we could get. I just want to sort of develop this point a little bit, Stel. We know that Notts and Cup competitions for many years have been pretty much a disaster area. Luke Williams doing really well. We used to somehow snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and penalty shootouts at Shrewsbury. That horror show of those games we had. I forget who that was when we conceded 3 absolute howlers. Now, I spoke to quite a few people in football, and there are quite a lot of clubs in lower divisions who prioritize is the wrong word. They attach a great deal of emphasis and importance to having a cup run. And as such, they incentivize the manager to use those marketing phrases, key performance indicators. So, in the way that business people monitor business people, KPIs, quite a few clubs have KPIs for a manager or a head coach that say good cup run, and clearly, if you're incentivizing your head coach or saying this is really important, that can affect their decision-making processes in how they field strong teams. And this has obviously been polarized by us all watching Grimsby last week, having got through the first game, get Manchester United, one of the greatest nights in Grimsby history. They'll talk about it for the next 30 years. But everyone will know where they were that night when Grimsby beat Manchester United. And we talk a lot about sustainability at this football club and the development of off-field revenue streams. The Nest, paddle courts, all very, very good, developing commercial streams. But the reality is that game, Grimsby, the Cup run, it's probably earned them £500,000 now they've got through, minimum. The EFL Cup, do you attach any importance to that? Is there a value to getting through these early rounds in front of 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people still, and mobilising the troops, or not? Or do we just sling out the younger players and see where they are with things?
Yeah, look, I think there is a difference to be made. Let's not conflate the EFL Trophy with the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. The rewards on offer are obviously lower. You're not going to get the same sort
unless
of
you
night.
get to Wembley right at the end.
Yeah. Even so, if you get to the final, it's still not going to give you I'd argue it's still not going to give you a night like Grimsby beating Man U.
No,
we've got a chance to beat Man U in about 2 months' time, haven't we? But it's they're under 21.
Under 21.
And I don't think it's going to be quite the same, is it? But so I think again, and you're talking about things there, the business of the football club, if you like, the Nest and the paddle courts and things like that. And they talk about this sustainable model, don't they? Joe Palmer and the brothers, right from the get down. Now, this is where, and we're coming back to these words, alignment. This is where you need the club aligned from top to bottom when it comes to an EFL trophy. Because what is success in the EFL trophy? We all want a cup run. Don't get me wrong, we all want to get through we didn't get one in the Carabao, so we want to get through to the FA Cup and get a Man United or a first team and have a night like that. Absolutely agree. The EFL Trophy doesn't allow you them nights because obviously it's only the bottom 2 divisions. So, as a club, what's your strategy for it? What's winning? And I think last year, certainly, was a very clear message that we put youngsters. We put youngsters in the team or in the squad, certainly. Young Cameron Muir, 15 years of age, got
You did, yeah.
game time for the club. Now, I would say that is possibly good business for the club somewhere down the line. We don't know what his career is going to have, and I'm only using his name because he's 15, but we don't know what his career is going to lead to. But if the EFL trophy is used as the sort of conduit for us bringing young players in, giving them game time, because then we can then sell that to attract people or better players to our academy. Because look at Notts, you'll get a chance if you're good enough playing the first team. Yes, it might be EFL trophy, but there's a pathway through the youth into the first team, and then it's down to being good enough to force your way into the league team, league side, and what have you. But I think that is alignment in terms of, look, it's not about just, let's throw the kids out because we don't care about it. No, let's pick the kids that are good enough, or have half a chance, and let's put them in and see how they go. Either put them on the bench, but let's get them some game time, because as a club with a strategy, we want longevity in terms of being able to get other people, the next phase of the academy players coming through, going, look, come to Notts, you can get in the first team, because other clubs will do it. And if somebody sees a youngster sees a pathway to a first team, that is a big selling point, believe me. So from a club point, do we value, do you know what? We want the strongest team in the EFL trophy because we want to go to Wembley and try and win it. Fair enough, if that's the strategy. Or do you go to the manager, look, it's up to you. If you think we can chop and change, but obviously, don't get me wrong, they still want to win these games. These are not, it's not just throwing out a team and let's see, we're not bothered. It's wanting to win these games. But can we find a way of winning these games, but also introducing some kids into it? Because again, you've got that strategic alignment, if you like, with the academy that we need to sell to future generations, to bring players through, to generate revenue, to make us this sustainable club, this sustainable model that we want to be. Being sustainable obviously involves selling players at times, whether they're young, whether they're Macaulay Langstaffs, Dan Crowley's, Aaron Nemans, players like that, Alex Bassers. Everybody has a value, but you've got to try and be sustainable, if not so strategy as that. What is the best way? And I'm talking about purely on its own, the EFL trophy. What is the best way of getting a business model or some sort of business sense by attacking the EFL trophy? Is it your strongest lineup, or is it, a bit of both, a bit of senior players, some squad players who obviously need minutes, who haven't had minutes, and we definitely need some young lads in there if we deem them to be good enough. It's not charity, but if they're deemed to be good enough and half a chance, get them in there, get them involved, because otherwise I don't see too many chances. Again, with this 28-man squad that
Yeah.
we've got, there are not too many chances in the league for some of these youngsters to break through, unless they're doing unbelievable things behind the scenes. And if they are, then they should be in the EFL Trophy team anyway. So I think it's a definite case of that should be the model for Notts and for clubs like Notts.
EFL Cup, says Paul Cuthbert, will be absolutely vital to those young/fringe players. Could make the world of difference to their season. Chance to prove themselves. Let's go for it. One wonders as well if the likes of Hinchy, Edwards, limited game time, puts them in the shop window. Any other clubs want to come in for loan deals or whatever, depending what the club does. I mean, still, you've got on record as before. 28 too many. Do you think the club need to be actively trimming that down? Size of the bomb squad a bit too big at the minute?
Yeah, it is for me. It is for me. I know we've got some injured players in there, but you're always going to have injuries. I think 28, and like I say, that is not including, aside from the goalkeepers, that's not including any youngsters. For me, that's not including any of them young lads that potentially in and around the club. So I'm talking 28 who are, say, first team players, if you like. So for me, that's too big. But again, I wouldn't be surprised to see one or two go out, if not maybe three or four go out to non-league clubs, albeit even on loan, because they can do obviously at any point outside of the window. There's no window in the National League, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah, it's more than ideal, I would say. But like I say, Martin Patton might see it differently.
Nigel Natty, I don't think Martin will make too many changes tomorrow. You said in the past weeks that you deserve a shirt, you will play. If you are on the fringe, you have to earn your place. Ian Cooksey asked about any rules and regs, number of players. There used to be, you had to play a certain number, I believe. You couldn't make 11 changes to the starting lineup. Not quite sure whether that is still the case or not. Excuse me. A debate raging still about Didsey. I'll do my best not to get involved on that. I think everybody knows my views on that one. Okay, that's the cup part. Fleetwood. They've been through the ringer, really, haven't they, the last few years? Home, we've kind of already established you'll be looking for two strikers up top on Saturday. I was trying to work out how he permed the midfield with two strikers, because let's be honest, we've played two out and out strikers, no more, I would have thought, than 3 or 4 times in the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's always been a one, really, hasn't it? And someone's sitting off it, but for me, you're the experts, though, we're all civilians. It did look to me like you had a proper twin-pronged attack.
Yeah, certainly when Jata came on, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that'll be. I don't think that'll be how he'll go tomorrow night, but I think that will be how he goes Saturday afternoon. Yeah, look, he's tweaked it in midfield, hasn't he? I think he's moved to a bit of a diamond at times, and then, like I say, we talk about these formations, and I'm a little bit old school in terms of, a diamond to a box is basically everyone just moving 5 yards the starting position, but so rarely are you ever found in them sort of positions as a team. It's incredible. So the game now, with everyone being athletes and being that fast and fluid, I think formations play probably less of a part of it. People will say, no, it's all about formations and it's not. It's about how you play. It's about what you do in them formations, because your formation is only really your starting organised position. After that, it's about spotting the positions on the pitch, getting in the gaps. If the opposition, know how you're going to play and stand in your space, you've got to move, haven't you? So again, it's about what you do in these formations. But again, they will tweak things based on strengths and weaknesses of the opposition. Now, Pete Wild, we've come across Pete Wild's teams quite a bit, obviously Fleetwood manager now, and we sort of know they like to play through the lines, don't they? They like to pass the ball. They're very fluid and have rotations usually in their systems. So, that's something to combat against. But if you play two up top against, they have played a back three, Fleetwood, then that gives them a different problem against teams that don't play two. Obviously, you've got a central defender who's picking a centre forward up on his own. Your two right and left centre halves have got a decision to make. Go and pick up your number 10s and play 1v1, or do you draft one of your midfield players to come and sit in front and shield and do stuff like that? So there's nuances to everything, but it's always 11v11, and it's always about getting people organised to do a job. So like I say, whatever the formation, it's about how you play within that formation. And if you go with two up top, then obviously you can only play one number 10, as they call them now, withdrawn position. So it necessitates change somewhere else in the pitch. So again, it's maybe people just changing their role a little bit. But like I say, you could talk formations forever and a day, but it just comes down to how well you play it on the pitch. For half an hour, they look like they played it pretty well at Tranmere. Now, hopefully, they can take that on and build a link up, because I think I said it on the radio. If you see two strikers like Jata and Dennis, they look like a good combination, don't they? Of strikers, just physical combination, the strengths of each other, both mobile, but both decent physical presence. Obviously, Jata well over 6 foot. Matt Dennis more diminutive, but decent in the air, as we've seen with a couple of headed goals. So, they'll be a handful. They will be a handful for whether they play against a back four or a back three or a back five, whichever you want to call it. They will be a handful if we can get them good service.
George Hilton, I think, has gone for the best memory of the night. Certainly about the oldest one. George says, I remember Notts beating Chelsea in the FA Cup in 1956, with Albert Broadbent hitting the winner at the Kop end. 47,000 there that day. I was standing on the touchline on the main stand side. I wonder if you are the only member of the flock, or are there other members that were there that day? Two strikers worked well against Tranmere, so that probably means we won't continue with it, says Derek Flowers. Derek's not too happy. Martin Shipley, 4-4-2 is on its way back, I hope. For me, always the best formation. Two strikers, two wingers who can drop back into midfield, two central midfielders, and a back four that takes no prisoners. Malvina says there's no restrictions on EFL Trophy. Michael Morley says you can only change 6 outfield players. Truth probably somewhere in between. Play 2 up top on Saturday, says Steve Galdard. I suspect that will be very popular among most of the Notts faithful. Jones needs to be back on the wing, says Mark Cass. Well, he won't be Saturday. Well, he might be on the wing for Malta, but he won't be on the wing for us, will he? Chris Gosling, the question would be, is Jatta going to play deeper with Dennis looking to get onto the flick-ons? Worked well Saturday. Nice to see Dennis doing well, says NCFC World. With him and Jatta, what a strike force. There's and I think Jurgen and Joe have been dissecting the EFL Trophy rule book as to what you can and can't do. So, hey, who knows? Who knows? I tell you one thing, Stell, I've not mentioned it for a couple of weeks. Do you think inverted is over at Notts County? Because I'm thinking Gordon down the right scores, bombing on, and Cotter. I'm thinking Cerula down the left, playing well. Do you think that's over now, or am I speaking too soon?
It certainly looks like Martin's not that bothered about inverted wing backs, is he? So it might be gone for the time being, absolutely. But you just never know in football, do you? You never know. Look, when things aren't going well, that's when people change things. So never say never.
Well, I mean, I think again, most people, it was one of the sticks that was often used to beat Stuart Maynard with, wasn't it? But look, as an individual, I much prefer seeing people on their natural feet. Might have been a harder finish if Cerula had been on that side than it was for Kellen Gordon, who I thought finished it very well, actually.
Yeah, brilliant.
I thought that he still had a bit of work to do, didn't he? I know the goalkeeper was on the deck and all the rest of it, but he still had a fair bit to do. What are you doing tomorrow, Stell? You're actually going to the game, aren't you? But
I am, yeah.
If Traore is fit, is that one to put him in? If Jarvis is fit, would you like to see him put in?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I think we'll see. If it was me, you would see a lot of the fringe players who haven't had minutes. Just to get a minutes, you'd protect anywhere you feel you can't afford an injury. So, you centre halves. Rod McDonald will probably be wrapped in a bit of bubble wrap sort of thing to keep him, with Matty Platt injured. Jacob Beddoe probably won't play. Your regulars, you're probably likely to take them out a little bit. I know that can lead to a disjointed team and sometimes disjointed performances. But again, it depends on we'll say about what the strategy is for the EFL Trophy, and I think you need players with minutes in the legs. Will Jarvis I think he's a particular case in point. We've speculated that the type of player he is has not endeared himself to Martin in terms of maybe how he goes about his training and how he goes about his game. But does that then mean, I mean, again, without knowing behind the scenes, does that then mean, well, I'm not going to give him a starting shirt because he's shown, he's not shown the desire in training. And like I said, he's not a charity, and I agree, it isn't a charity. Don't just give people a shirt just for the sake of it. But if it is a case of just getting, here is a chance to get minutes into players, should they deserve a shirt? If they've been, say, a disgrace, if they've not been training properly, then obviously no, you're out the picture. And if they're not training properly, then they should be out the club at the next opportunity. But if none of that is an issue, then I would like to see them have minutes. I think yeah, this is your chance to at least get some competitive minutes in. Lucas Ness is another one. Don't know whether he's fully fit and available. Yeah, I think the team sheet will tell. I think if he is, then we'll see him. Um, so there's a few. Traore's another one. Yeah, absolutely. I think, as we've mentioned, Jatta and Dennis starting, aren't they? Not tomorrow, but I think on Saturday are probably starting, or whenever they're deemed to be fully fit and playing together. So then you look to go, right, who's the next cab off the rank? Can we get him up to speed? Can we get him a goal for starters?
Mhm.
And get some confidence into some of these other players and believe that. I say, if you're part of a 28-man squad, and you're not playing, you could be a long way from playing. So when you get a shirt, be it an EFL Trophy game that you maybe don't really think, I want to be in the league team, but this is how it starts. You've got to put a performance in this. If this is the first chance you get, you've got to put a performance in this to even give a hint to the manager or the head coach and say, look, I can show you what I can do in the league. When there's an injury, when there's a space, when there's a loss of form, I'm your man. You can trust me. But that's got to happen. But you've got to be given minutes to be able to do that. And again, managers and coaches will say, but you've got to do it on the training ground to be able to get chance even in the EFL Trophy. So again, it's not a charity case. You've got to earn it, and you earn it from Monday to a Friday on the training ground.
Yeah, I think you're saying there, where we're particularly weak and have key players, you've got to be very careful. So McDonald, I think you were saying probably not. Your two main strikers, not. What would you do about the keeper? Would you give young Griffiths a chance tomorrow?
Probably, yeah, yeah. Again, if I think he's genuinely up to it, I don't want to weaken the team. I don't want to,
Mm,
but he's the number two keeper de facto. We think, other than me, like
yeah,
Pirot, that he's the de facto number two keeper. So yes, I would play him in the EFL Trophy. Like I say, Matt Palmer wouldn't be playing.
yeah,
Um, I think Ollie Norburn probably needs the minutes, maybe, so
yeah.
he might start. And again, it depends who's a fit and available, as well as to what sort of team I play. But yeah, there are certain players that I don't think need the game. Um, so that's generally more experienced players and players in areas that we don't need an injury to them. That's the thing. But again, you still want to put out a strong team. So again, you'll play wing backs, like you've said. I think we've got plenty of wing backs, plenty of cover at wing back. So you could go, well, the wing backs, whoever plays, we need a performance because you're pushing for a start potentially, and you've got to keep pushing the man in front of you. But we've got plenty of cover as well, so I don't think it's a risk there. So he might, if there are stipulations. I know it was. I think you had to keep six of the starting or six of the squad in last season's competition. I must admit, I'm not read up on this season's EFL Trophy. But if is a quota you have to keep from sort of Saturday's game, then you'd be strategic about that sort of thing, and maybe pick your wing backs, pick areas where you've got cover.
Sam Draper, I'm not particularly worried about getting another striker in. My main concern is if McDonald gets injured. There's absolutely no cover for him at the moment. Even if Ness is fit, he's going to need some game time to get game ready. SE Kent, this team is starting to gel. I'd say to play a full squad, maybe see who can play in place of Jody in preparation for Saturday. Andy Eason, Makari and Ness are the only senior players waiting in the wings. So one or two of Jacob, Rod McDonald, or El Joffrey would be rested. Joe Crabtree's mentioned Theo Robinson, one of the highly rated youngsters. Played quite a bit in pre-season. He did indeed. Young left-footed centre-back, signed from Forest about a year ago. He was actually at Notts originally, Joe. With Notts, went to Forest, saw the error of his ways, he's come back. Tyrese Hall is a shout from Josh Chambers. But we shall see. And I must say, I'm very pleasantly surprised that there's 500 of us going over to Lincoln. I must admit, when I got my ticket a while ago, you were possibly certifiable to be going to that game. But anyway, should be all right. Now, Radio Nottingham are doing normal match day coverage still.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's not much build up. I think we're only sort of on air in the game, and we come on at like 5 minutes build up and team news and what have you. But yeah, game is fully covered on Radio Nottingham. Yeah.
Very good. So it's Lincoln tomorrow, EFL Cup, and then we have Fleetwood, which will be taking place on Saturday. That just about does it for tonight. So no incomings, no outcomings on transfer deadline day. We go with what we've got. We'll do a vlog as always from Lincoln tomorrow. So see everyone in Sinsel Bank. Stel, thank you as always for your input and expertise.
Yeah, pleasure. Knew we didn't need the yellow tie on, did we, for deadline day? Nothing happened. So yeah, glad I didn't bother with that. But yeah. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you there tomorrow night, 500 travelling. That's fantastic, and hopefully a decent result to take us into Saturday.
And thanks, as always, to our official partners, JH Accountants and the Big Shed at the Trent Navigation, for all their support in helping us to do what it is that we do with this variety of podcasts. Back as normal on Monday, doing a vlog tomorrow. Stay safe, everyone. See you all soon. Cheers for now.
Cheers.